Next hand tool of interest is the chisel. Here we have a variety of chisels. This is a 1-inch wide blade. We also have 3/4, ½ inch, and 1/4 inch blades. And we have the handle that everybody will think is what you need to grip by, but actually most of the time no, because you won't have the precision that you need to make the cuts that you want to make. We also have the blade, the bevel, and up at the very top is the cutting edge. And the cutting edge needs to be extremely sharp because it is supposed to cut wood. Wood is harder to cut than flesh. So please be very careful with this in how you hold it, and don't point it at yourself. Our practice assignment, we're going to use another piece of scrap wood, having destroyed the previous one with the crosscut saw. And there are two fundamental cuts that you will make with a chisel. One of them is the chop, and the other one is the pare or the slice. So to chop, you need to hold the chisel so that your fingers are on the back side here. So I have the bevel. The bevel is the angled part here, and I want my fingers to be behind that. And I'm going to use them as a pivot. So when I put my fingers down, I'm going to put them down first, and I'm going to roll up so that the blade is exactly where I want it to be, and there's no guesswork involved. If I hold the thing like a dagger, and I try to put it down here, especially as you get started and are new at this, being very precise in your placement is going to be quite difficult. It is also important to keep your fingers and hands behind the blade so that you don't cut yourself. The second cut is the pare. The pare is going to be requiring you to hold the chisel by the blade, with your thumb on top, and then your power will come from behind on the handle as you push the chisel into the side of the wood and work it back and forth across the wood to slice. And you will need to remove very small bits of wood there also. For this practice assignment, we will be doing these one and then the other to cut a chunk out of the end of one board, and we're going to start by marking off exactly how much and where we want it to be cut off. So let's take our square and our pencil and look at that. From one end of our block, let's mark off 3/4 inch. So 3/4 inch right there. Mark that. And we'll come down here and mark it again. Then we'll take our square and flip it up. And it doesn't really matter how far down because we're going to swipe a line all the way across this. Come up, make sure the lip is up against the top edge, and then we'll strike a line, and the line, if everything is set up correctly, should pass through both points. I'm going to want to mark off the waist, and we're going to chop on the right side of the line. Now, how far down do we want to go? Let's make sure that our marks go right up to the edge here so that we can see on the next face, because for this, let's go halfway down. So we're going to take this guy and we're going to measure halfway down. Now, halfway down is 3/8 inch. So 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, and we're going to put a dot. We're going to come down the end here and go 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, and put a dot. And then we're going to connect these dots. Now, if you're having trouble with holding your ruler, your square flat on here, and connecting these guys while holding the block of wood also, you can put it in the bench vise to help you hold it. And it's okay if this line goes a little bit behind because we're going to chop out this section and leave that section. It's okay if you have more pencil lines. So I've got a little bit farther there, that's okay. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side and be taking out that side. So 3/8 up. So 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, put a dot, slide over. Don't hit the camera. 1, 2, 3/8, put a dot. Then we're going to connect our dots. Using the square part for this is difficult as there is not much to lean it against. But here, there's more face, we can use the square better. Now the hard part is going to be going across the end here because we want to connect this line with this line. And Now that we have them both marked on the top here, let's connect these dots. Again, bench vise might be helpful for most people. All right, so now we should have one line that is just continuous all the way around, and we're going to chop it out with the chisel. In order to do that, we want to have this guy secured, so we're going to take a squeeze clamp and secure it to the edge of the table. Pull this over the edge of the table, take our squeeze clamp, and in order to keep most of the squeeze clamp out of the way, we want the handle below the table and the long post also below the table. With 25 people chopping, wood chunks sometimes fly around, so safety goggles on. And here we go. We're going to take our chisel and very carefully remove small bits, starting on the outside and working our way across. And keeping in mind this is an exercise, so this is not going to be the most efficient way, but the practice is on using the chisel to remove small chunks of wood. And we're not going to want to go past this line here, nor below that line, nor below this line that we've drawn. So we're going to remove small chunks and work our way towards our line. So place it here, and then give it just a tap, because that's all we need is a tap with a properly sharpened chisel. Notice the bevel is away from our line of interest, and we're going to make a line of chops all the way across, and just keep doing that as we work our way back to our line that we drew. We're not going to take that last chop right onto the line just yet. We're going to keep a little space there so we don't go over the line prematurely. Now, all of this waste here, we need to get rid of that layer, and then we'll do it all over again with the next layer down, because if you notice, each chop only goes down about 1/16 of an inch, and then we're going to want to clear this out. So we can flip the bevel over and chop. Again, we're chopping away from our line here. So we've cleared that out, and we can chop towards the line very gently because we don't want to accidentally go past the line here. We're clearing all that out, and now we're going to do it all over again, the same sort of way to take off the next layer. Now when you get close to your line here, let's come in, you can see there's very little wood left above the line. It's time to stop chopping and start paring. At that point, you hold the chisel with the bevel side up, thumb over it, fingers curled around the blade, other hand on the handle so that you can press into the wood and start slicing it to get close to that line. Because again, you don't want to go through the line. You want to make slow, patient slices. And if you cut off tiny amounts, you should see that the wood curls up here as you slice it off. You should also be careful not to go through the wood to the back side, and you're going to have to reclamp sometimes. Don't go through the back side, because if you push out of the wood, you're going to discover that it splits and breaks, and you have what's called tear out. Carefully placing on the corner here, and I'm getting very close to the line, so it's about time to stop even here. And then we'll clean up along the line across the face to get down to our desired depth. Now, to make sure I don't push out the back too much wood and have tear out, I can turn this around. Now, in order to make sure that you don't accidentally split this wood, so there's this piece right here that came off, but there's more coming from the other side. And in order to make sure I don't actually split the wood underneath, sometimes it's necessary to take and do a very, very light chop to split those fibers. And then when I'm paring, I don't need to worry about accidentally splitting the wood here. I'm just cutting this piece off. Okay, the last bit is to chop off down to that line. We want to get to the line but not over the line. So again, we're going to want to use our fingers as the pivot as we hold the chisel and put the fingers on the wood that we want to keep, and then put the blade of the chisel on the other side. Now for this part, you need to make sure that the chisel really is straight up and down as you chop, chopping very lightly across this edge. And we have a few things to clean up there to make it nice and smooth, so we're back to paring one more time. And if you get to this point and you don't have tear out or split, and you haven't gone through the lines, but you've gone up to the lines, you've done well. And maybe you're ready to start the next step, which is making the wood joints